Hello, hello. Welcome back to this episode of the Confident Woman Lead podcast. I am your host, Coach Anita, and today we're going to be talking about looking up the big picture thinking that takes you from tactical to strategic leadership. And I know that this is something that we struggle with, but we don't know how to move from that tactical place to strategic thinking, strategic leadership in a way that we can demonstrate and others can see. And so when I'm talking about big picture, I'm not just talking about the ability to speak at a high level or to see things. I'm not talking about skipping over the details or just looking out into the future. I'm talking about the skill of seeing how everything in an organization connects. This ability is what separates you from being stuck in the middle, stuck in tactical roles, and moving from there to unlocking senior or strategic level positions, the ones that you want to be in, the ones with actual authority and power and impact. Okay. And so to help with this, I'm going to tell you a story about a time where I was deep into a project. So deep in the details of it, I was responsible for leading a good portion of it. And I'm just going to go ahead and say I was 100% right. At least that's how I felt. But no, really, I was 100% right in how I was thinking about it. I had my plan all mapped out and it was tight because, we got to keep it twice as good. And I just knew that what I was proposing was the right decision. But then my executive chose someone else's approach and I was heated. And I couldn't understand why he would go with something else or with someone else's approach. And to be honest, I felt like my expertise and my experience, especially because the other person didn't report to him and I did, was being dismissed and overlooked. And I was not happy about it because I knew what I was talking about. And again, I was right. And so after this meeting, I guess I was visibly upset. And one of the execs pulled me to a side and they said to me, Anita, you need to look up. Look up. And I didn't know what that meant at first. But as I walked away, I did what we all do. I started to analyze the conversation I had with that particular executive. I started to think about what they were trying to convey to me. And what I realized is that I was locked in. I was so focused on why my plan was better. But then it hit me. My focus was so narrow, so tactical, that I wasn't seeing how my plan fit into the bigger vision of the company, but also even the vision or objectives that my overarching team needed to accomplish, right? So not just what I need to accomplish for this project, but how does this project fit into the overall objectives of things that need to get done? And that can include non-tangible things such as managing relationships with other teams. Okay. And here's the kicker. Even though I was right in the details, I wasn't demonstrating the strategic thinking that senior leaders look for. I was emotionally tied to my plan. And so while I was all in my feelings, the man who had the other approach came across as calm, cool, and collected. He showed how his idea would help us meet our overall strategy and objectives, not just for this project, but other projects that we had or that our team needs to collaborate on. And thus, he got the nod. And so I tell you this because we've all been there. That moment when you know that you're right, not out of ego, but just out of expertise, because you've thought it through, you've done the work, you know how the process works. But sometimes being right in the details isn't enough. When you are too emotionally tied to your work, especially in front of men in leadership roles, I'm just keeping it a buck, stereotypes start playing in their minds, even if they don't realize it. Women then end up in their minds getting labeled as emotional and men as strategic, even when we're delivering the same point. What they're looking for, whether it's a male or female leader, is someone who can look up, see how everything fits together, and communicate that in a way that shows you're thinking beyond the immediate task. This is the key difference between you staying in tactical roles and moving into the strategic leadership positions that you want and that you deserve and that you are also more than capable of being successful in. So let's talk about it a little more. This is also something that you likely do in interviews as well. Whether you're interviewing for a job at a new company, in a new department, or whether you're interviewing for that promotion. You're in the interview, they're asking questions, you think you're nailing it, you're talking about how you handle things, how you execute. But here's the thing, they're not just listening for what you know how to do, they're listening for how you think, how you communicate, how you speak. If you're too focused on the minutia, the steps, you're telling them that that's where your focus will stay. It will stay in kind of the here and now. And that's fine if the role that you're interviewing for is a tactical role. But if it's a leadership role, then it might cause you to not be the one to get the job offer. So then when you can look at the big picture and weave that in to your responses, you can weave in the future. You're positioning yourself as someone who can operate at the next level, who can speak at the next level, who sees beyond the project at hand, the question at hand, and you understand how it all will impact the team, the department, and the organization. So how do you do this? How do you start showing big picture thinking? And it's not just simply by talking about words like strategic or throwing out terms like strategy or vision. It's about being able to demonstrate that you understand business, the business objectives, and that you can connect your work to those larger goals, and that you are someone who thinks 3 steps ahead, not 3 tactical steps ahead, 3 strategic moves ahead. So here's a tip. The next time you're working on something or preparing for an interview, don't just think about what you're doing. Think about why it matters in the grand scheme of things. Ask yourself, how does this work impact the company's long-term goals? How does it make the business stronger or more competitive? How does it make the company money or save the company money? And most importantly, how can you communicate that in a way that is clear, calm, and shows that you are in control of your emotions and your message? At the end of the day, being able to see the big picture is about elevating your presence. It's about moving from, do they trust me to execute, to do they trust me to lead? And also remembering and asking yourself the question, do I trust myself enough to lead? So if you feel like you're being passed over in terms of what you're proposing, if you've been passed over for a promotion, if you're wondering why you're stuck in the middle or you're not getting tapped for leadership roles, this might be the missing piece for you. You have to show them that you can look up, that you can see the big picture, that you can handle multiple things at once at a senior leadership level. And that likely means that you can't be so stuck, so tied to the minutia, the details, the middle, the process, because you're focused on the big picture. So I want you to take away from today's episode How am I looking up? How am I seeing what else is going on around us? How do I understand how all this fits together? And how well do I communicate that? How well do I communicate what's happening with me or my team? How well do I tie that to the overall objectives that my boss or my boss's boss has? Remember, we're not just working hard, we're working strategically. Look up, sis. Look up. If you look up, you'll see the pieces. You'll be able to articulate it because you'll be able to see it. And that is where your next level is waiting. So if you're ready to start thinking big and communicating like a true leader, then I invite you to join us for the Speak Like a Leader experience. Again, in 7 days, you're going to transform how you communicate, elevate your presence, and position yourself for leadership roles that you already deserve. You just need a couple of key tools. Let's make sure that not just doing all that hard work and that it's going unnoticed, but that you're seen, heard, and promoted. Don't wait for your next level. You got to go get it. Remember that confident women lead because we looking up and we know where we're going. I love you, sis. Let's get to work.